Hi, my name is Patrick Vaughn. In a few weeks, I will join you at Madison Avenue Presbyterian Church as your transitional minister. I look forward to getting to know you, to hearing your stories about the past, and listening to your dreams for the future. As hard as it is for me to believe, this month marks the 33rd anniversary of my ordination. I have been blessed in my ministry to serve churches in the North and in the South. I have served small churches in which 20 or 15 members on a Sunday morning was considered a wonderful success. And I have served large churches in which 600 at worship was typical. And yet, as varied as my ministry has been, I don't think I have ever been in a situation or a time in which ministry is as challenging or promising as it is right now. Consider, for example, that you and I are coming into ministry, and it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a challenge to get to know one another. We will visit by Zoom. We will see one another on online worship, but we can't get together. COVID-19 has disrupted our lives, and as some of you have probably read, the mental health experts tell us that this is taking a heavy toll on our spiritual, emotional, and relational health. COVID-19 is presenting a significant challenge for ministry today. But not only COVID-19, we are now living in a time of painful political polarization. How do we talk to one another? How do we work together? How do we respect one another when we disagree with each other so vehemently and deeply? And we are living in a time in which the church in North America has been marginalized. Churches are declining in membership and participation. Churches are closing from one coast to the next. For example, 65 million people have left the church. 7 million people are still in the pews, but they're not sure if they're going to stay or not. Of those 65 million who left, 30.5 million still love Jesus. They want to follow Jesus, they want to love Jesus, but they don't want to have anything to do with Jesus' people. How do we minister in that kind of situation? And, of course, you had a short-term pastorate. You had hoped that Jenny would stay longer for 2 years, and now it's been, 5 or 6 months since she left? And I imagine that some of you, perhaps many of you, are still confused, puzzled, hurt, angry, disappointed. What do we do with that experience? It's not unusual at all for a pastor who follows a long-time pastorate, a long pastorate like 25 years. It's not unusual at all for that new pastorate to become an unintentional interim. What can we learn from that? How might we grow from that to strengthen our ministry together at Madison Avenue Presbyterian Church? And how can we learn and grow in such a way that we can do as much as possible to keep that from happening again? For just as it is not unusual for a short-term pastorate to follow a long-term pastorate, it is also not unusual for one short-term pastorate to follow another short-term pastorate and another and another and another. And before you know it, 10, 15, 20 years have passed. We don't want that to happen. This is not a time to blame anyone or to point fingers, but to learn together, to grow, so that your ministry in the future will be as vital and vibrant as possible. It's a challenging time to come together for ministry, and yet it is also an exciting time. For God calls the church into situations just like this. God calls us to embrace situations just like this, where the fear is rampant and anxiety is high and uncertainty is everywhere to be found. How are you and I going to come together to bear faithful witness to Jesus Christ in this time and place? How will we share the good news with our neighbors in the Upper East Side, with those in our great city, with those around the world? What word of truth and grace do we have to share? Many, many years ago, Ethel was a member of my church. She was 92 years old. Ethel lived in a nursing home. She could no longer see and she could barely hear. And so when I went to visit Ethel, I would get my chair and slide it up as close as I could to her bed. I would cup my hands together and then yell, "Ethel, Ethel, this is Patrick. Can you hear me? Ethel." And then slowly she would flutter her eyes open and smile, and then her face would turn in the direction of my voice. We would chat, laugh, share bits and pieces of our lives. Communication was a challenge. I continued to have to get very, very close to yell into her ear so that she knew that I was there. One day, as I was about to leave, she reached up with her hand and started rubbing the side of my face and then patting it. And then she said, "Is this real? Is this real?" Ethel wanted reassurance that she was not all alone in the world. Ethel wanted to know if hope, love, community, compassion are indeed real. And I said to her, "Yes, Ethel, I'm here. This is real. This is real." In a similar manner, so many people in our neighborhoods and our society and across our world are wondering about God and God's faithfulness and God's love and God's justice. And they are asking, is this real? Is God real? Can we trust God? Does God genuinely love us and care about us? Churches are asking this question too. God, let us hear from you. Are you real? Help us to know the best way to serve you. My friends, our challenge in this difficult and exciting time is to find multiple ways to communicate to our neighbors and to the world that yes, indeed, God is real. God is faithful. God is loving. God is just. How are we going to do that? How are we going to share this word of hope and joy with our neighbors? I look forward to meeting you soon and joining together with you in ministry. Take care.